Artlist.io. Music licensing reimagined. 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 Artlist.io. Artlist.io. Music licensing reimagined. Artlist.io. Music licensing reimagined.
All right, welcome. This is the first time streaming on the new laptop, so I would appreciate anybody in the audience stating whether or not they can hear me and everything sounds good. I'm sure I don't look any better, but it is an improved machine, so. But while we wait for that positive affirmation, nice. Welcome, everybody. This stream was actually kind of slated last night as a way to prevent me from playing DFS on the horrendous football game that we're about to see in 2 hours. So if I kill enough time, I don't have enough time to make lineups, was kind of the thesis last night. And then this morning, things escalated a little bit quickly. I'd kicked around the idea for a few days now of at what price point does the DeStables coin make sense as kind of a making up for lost time on my lack of crown bags? And then when it went up, like, I don't know, from 79 cents like 2 days ago to 95 cents kind of right when I pulled the trigger. So maybe the top is in. Maybe I'm to blame for crown settling down a little bit, if it even has. I guess I haven't checked it super recently. But the moral of the story was we sell crown daily. A lot of that was initially for tracking purposes. The team's actually kind of rectified that. We have pretty good tracking on an ongoing basis now. And then the other part of that was when everybody was starting out, and this wasn't such a sure thing, every dollar that we kept in crown was $1 less we could spend in the stable. There wasn't a lot of appetite amongst the holders, myself included, to put more money into the game when we'd started accumulating assets. I think in like December 2021. So we weren't here for the mints, but we accumulated some stuff shortly thereafter. So that's a long time to hold. But we did accumulate over time. And then kind of once we went live, everything that we had earned in the early seasons, again, in this case, Crown and Derby, went to a lot of external breeds, which has paid off. It wasn't necessarily a charitable act or a paying it forward act. We got a lot of our external breeding done early when it was super cheap. And now we're starting to see some of those Gen 0 pieces that had matches or what have you go up in price a little bit. So I'd like to say we got it while getting was good. But the flip side of that is we don't own much crown. The total number is less than 1,000 crown. So DeStables, for those that don't know, does trade on Tensor. I'm sure you can find it on Magic Eden if anybody still goes there these days. There are some question marks about how these call them almost DAO stables are set up, and obviously you got to try to avoid making kind of a public offering for investors, and then you have to figure out how do you return money to people that bought the coin, however you can phrase that to not say investors. And as we're starting this, I will make the first mention, but probably not the last mention of. Nothing I ever say, but especially tonight, is construed to be financial advice. Do your own research. These are my own opinions. They don't even, especially today, reflect the opinions of Absolute Horsepower, our stable. This was an investment I made myself. So I can bring up my screen here. Again, bear with me. I'm working with a slightly new rig today. So everybody must be familiar with Tensor, because Tensorians went to like 100 sold today from like 65 like a day ago. Everybody loves the Jito airdrop and assumes this is the next chip to fall. But yeah, this morning, kind of when Crown was pumping, I decided it was probably like one of my last opportunities. You can see the first one we got. It's probably a little bit small, but first one I got was 3.99 SOL, and then I could have accumulated 29 before I got to 4.3. So getting 29 of the total 3,333 tokens with kind of just a spread of 0.3 SOL seemed like, if I'm going to do it, rather than try to accumulate over time, because there's really nothing listed here. So if the total supply is 3,333, total listed right now is 16. Obviously it was higher earlier today. But it felt like, other than over-the-counter one way to accumulate a fair bit of coin, and in this case I do mean coin fairly literally. Just want to snap these back, sorry. So if I go to the DStable server, which I think even if you're not a holder, it's another great server to kind of voice your opinions, ask questions about what you think about the game. If you are aspiring to create a group stable, as I would like to call them, as opposed to kind of a DAO stable, a group of friends putting money together before buying their first PFL asset, and then once that money's together, buying those assets, I think is probably the best way to structure a lot of this stuff. But they do share their announcements, and within that, I don't think this is private information. If it is, I might spoil it. But can I do that as like a quasi 1% shareholder? Who knows? Again, shareholder I use loosely, not literally. But this was the last update, and let's make it just a touch bigger. You can see what was appealing to me, and for purposes of the conversation tonight, the only one that really matters here. I mean, it's nice that they're profitable and stable operations itself, whether that's buy, sell, breed, pay to breed. What I wanted to know that I didn't have very good visibility in is how much Crown have they got from PFP staking. So this says 222,000 Crown. There's a different Excel online sheet, Excel sheets, what is it called? Microsoft Online, whatever. I don't like sheets, but it shows 333,000 Crown with like 660,000 Crown yet to get. That was kind of the one that I was hoping was right, more so than this one. So I hope I'm right there. This also has a Crown from racing, but you can see anybody's Crown from racing if you just go to their stable page. So we can pull up DStables. I'll make this a little bit bigger for everybody. And then go to stable stats. So lifetime, and then you can even click on include USDC value. So it shows that from racing alone, like I said, what I needed their tools for was to figure out what they had already got from staking PFPs and what they were yet to accumulate in staking PFPs. But on the track itself, they've gotten 771,000 Crown. So if you just take those kind of two numbers, what we think they've gotten from PFP emissions, call it, again, 330K, I think is what I saw in the Excel doc, and 771K, you're talking 1.1 million Crown. Again, Second mention of not financial advice. Do your own research. New computer, so I don't have the calculator snapped in here yet. But if we just do like back of the napkin math, times 1.1 million, just in Crown that they have at the current price, again, the price could go down, is about $1 million just in Crown. That doesn't take into account horses, that does not take into account what Crown they will get from future PFP emissions. So then you go back to the tensor page. We'll keep that calculator handy. Oh, sorry. I'm supposed to refer people, even though this computer doesn't even have any wallets connected to it. For all Tensor knows, I don't even trade JPEGs. So Crown price, good price. We like Crown price. You take 68.14, which is well, now it just dropped. I am the death of all things good. Times 5.29, which is the current floor price. So in floor price in USDC of DeStables at this second is $360. And then you times that times the collection size. So the collection market cap is 1.2 million USDC. Again, as of this second, and all of our streams are recorded, so this will be outdated soon enough. But it works right now. So the collection trades at a market cap of 1.2 million, and I told you in Crown they have about 1.1 million Crown, which was the equivalent of what, $970,000 USDC at current prices. So like I said, I think there's some concerns about how the stable was initially structured, how funds were raised, how they return funds. Like, do some due diligence, do more due diligence than I even did. I use that as a reason it probably appropriately traded at a little bit of a discount. And certainly it's going to trade at a little bit of a discount just based on visibility. If people know of Photo Finish Live, good. If they know of Crown, great. Chances are they could know of those first two things and not know of DeStables, or not know that DeStables has a coin that trades in Tensor. So this is like the last line of defense to global adoption, I guess, from a stable standpoint. So it is going to be the one that's most commonly overlooked. But for a person with no Crown, but what I like to think is a fairly kick-ass stable, this was a way for me to get there, and a way to deploy profits we've made from the game. I mean, I've been critical of others at times. Some of those people even subsequently have bought pieces. Shout out to Kamish for spending a chunk of change. Others have gotten more involved at not maybe necessarily my behest, but in spite of me criticizing a little bit. So this was my way of putting my own money back in, and certainly that's not as big of an investment as Kamish made on a horse, but we're still investing in the game, in our stable itself as well. So the next thing that, I guess we can look through the horses a little bit. I don't know as many of these, and this is the first time I've looked at their horses today. I bought without even, the horses were irrelevant. Like we just walked through, I thought what the Crown position they had and kind of the market cap of the collection was enough to make a determination there. What they do have that I don't have a lot of is they have some right dirt exposure and left dirt soft. We don't play there at all. Obviously the downgrade's a pretty good right dirt soft piece that's been used in breeding, had a great record. They do have some LTS pieces, and somehow Stacy's mom keeps putting out S pluses. So we compete in LTS. We sold the one S plus we'd made. Shout out to Ted. Everybody loves Ted. The one Twitter question we got from little known stable, the JJ of RVA Racing. Do I love Ted? Yes, I do. And there was a different Twitter thread today, and I hope most people saw my own. There was a different Twitter thread today that talked about, Ted had invested $650,000 USDC into a stable, and it turned out, I don't know, was it 50,000? Was it more than that? Someone can find the thread. Maybe they can drop it in chat. But the moral of the story for me was, if we think potentially that prices of horses are slightly frothy, then the person, pardon my French, is swinging the biggest dick around is been made to look good on his purchases. Then I think that's good for everybody. Like, that is super bullish. If like what most people would say is like, nah, maybe he just wanted to buy the best horse and he wasn't concerned about the price, which I still think is true. Like, I think that was the reason for some of those purchases. But if he's making it back fairly early, fairly often, fairly consistently, like, that's good for all of us. So yeah, DeStables, some nice horses in here, connecting the two dots. Ted would certainly love to have something out of this. If we look at, we'll use the gap data one. I'm a big fan of this for kind of global population type stuff. It's been a while since I've looked here. If we go to DeStables, they've got 181 just raw count of horses. But one thing I like to look at, that I think gets slept on when we talk like actual stable strength, is what do you have for, I don't know what the appropriate cutoff would be, but where I'm going with this is fillies that are, let's say, we'll do 3 first. Maybe we'll come back to 2. We'll start with 3. So these are essentially, in most cases, probably pregnant mares. Obviously, I could check the retired tab, and that would assume that they're pregnant mares, assuming they were all bred, which I would think that they are. Then if you want to dive deeper than the 49 total count, you could say, you know, how many S's do they have that are retired mares? 12. How many S minuses do they have? 13. So 25 across the 2. If you take those off, so I said 25 across the 2. So over half of their pregnant mares are S or S minus. If I was really trying to do like evaluation on what each horse was worth, I would care how many one-of-ones were used, what other breeding options are available after the horse that was created, those types of things. But I mean, if we're talking assigning most of the market cap valuation to the crown they hold, the horses, in my opinion, not financial advice, do your own research, were a bonus there. But if we look at stable strength, so we can continue the Ted versus DeStables or Ted and DeStables conversation, we could do Ted instead. So we said H3 fillies, H3 9 or higher, and then S and S minus was 25. Good number. We like these numbers. We'll take off DeStables and we'll go to Ted. Oh my God, how many Teds do we have? Oops, sorry. Ted Racing. Ted's got 9. So and maybe hopefully he sees this and this spurs him to, you know, drop another 300,000 here in 10 days time, 11 days time. But when I talk to people, they may think I'm crazy, but I'm not even convinced Ted has a top 5 stable yet, because, well, he'll maybe get there. If we expand this to 2, like, then maybe the competition gets a little bit closer between the 2. But at the end of the day, DeStables is going to put out almost 3 times as many horses of the S or S minus variety. This is just S minus. Maybe the number's closer than I thought. Let me get back. Sorry. Oh, it's 13. So DeStables puts out double, but then I guess maybe that is important to point out. Ted's only got 4 S's, and would we say DeStables had 12 or 13, one of the 2? So 3 times as many S's. So yes, Ted's got more S pluses probably than anybody at this point. And he'll probably buy more. I just think the compounding of assets upon themselves gives all of the early stables pretty big advantage if you're trying to rank like the top stables. That doesn't mean people that showed up today. That doesn't mean people that show up 2 weeks from now. It doesn't mean people that show up 2 months from now can't achieve great success in the game. But if we're going to do the kind of the beauty pageant show rankings of what are the top 5 stables, maybe we'll use this as like clickbait later, but I'm not sure Ted's in the top 5 quite yet. So, and Soulmates is number 1, and I don't think anybody's going to catch him. Anyway, let's see what we got for the next bullet point. I'm trying to look at chat at the same time. We get caught up there quick too. So let's see what we got. Sorry, I should be more organized. Feel weird on a new computer. Shout out to P. It's got to be getting somewhat late there. And yeah, I'm if you want to call me like a DeStables fanboy, like that's letting me off easy. Like I was maybe one of the biggest believers in every dollar I can spend on my own stables horses is better than me owning Crown, whereas we probably could have afforded to keep 50% of the racing Crown, sell 50%, or keep 75% and sell 25%. Like we're racing Derby positive in every season in the last like 6 seasons or so. Like I think we had 1 season where we weren't Derby positive. So yeah, rather than calling me a fanboy of DeStables, I think it's probably easier to wonder what happened. Who corrupted me? Was it David? Was it Commish on Crown? Is Aaron your boss now? You know, I don't think so, and I appreciate that I haven't been asked to chip in on any efforts at all. As a person that runs a stable, especially a high volume stable, I am going to enjoy the fuck out of not having to do anything. Shout out to Foley. If anybody's looking for someone to run a stable, that's a player that is from HRM, ran our stuff in Beta V2, certainly knows the game about as well as anybody. Sorry, I got to make sure I get the name right here. Chicken Smack. Aren't those lifetime Crown numbers wrong? I don't know, and maybe someone's covered this. I don't think that the Crown itself is wrong. Now it tells you like what the Crown value is. Like we'll show ours, and then I don't know what our average selling price was. I'd probably cry if I knew what it was. So it's probably best that I don't know. But if we go to like stable stats on ours, our net Crown is 625,000 Crown, and the game is telling me that we've got 547,000 in USDC from Crown. We haven't. That's taking today's price. Our average selling price, if I had to guess, it's probably like 20 cents. It might even be lower than that because we were getting a ton of Crown in the seasons where Crown was like between 3 and 5 cents. So I stand by the decision, but it wouldn't suck to have a huge bag of Crown and thus maybe buy a piece of someone else's stable to compensate for that. Oh, shout out to my Clanosaur, or one of. Let's get back to the other screen again. Sorry, operating new machine. What I wanted to talk about next, we'll make sure we get through all the chat. Stacy's mom would never put out for me. I don't know if that's in reference to the song or the horse in PFL. Yeah, Tom's there as well. Poker player's about to start an NFT collection. Yeah, it seems like every NFT collection go up, so you might be onto something there. Again, not financial advice. Yeah, Ted is insane. I mean, I shared the story on a couple streams ago probably, but last Fool's Day, we'd listed the S Plus LTS we'd made that only had, it must have had 2 1-of-1s in it, but I think most of the S Pluses at LTS have 3. I'd have to check. Well, let's find it quick. That's why we have the interwebs to use. But we listed it and he bought it 11 minutes later, which just like immediately makes you feel some pinch of regret. But it was the right deal at the right time. Yeah, 2 1-of-1s, and all of it's our own. Like, we own Faith, we own Pluto, we own Keep the Faith, we own Saturn. I honestly couldn't even tell you if we repeated the breed. I would think we would have. Let's see. We did. So, and obviously we're doing it pretty cheap. So we can do that. Again, we won't get the same result probably because I'm sure this was an outlier outcome, but really good preferences, 2 1-of-1s. So that means they can still use Scuba going forward. Eventually it can probably come back to us and give us some generational wealth when it has to breed with the horse properly named Not For Sale. I think is the only S from 0 1-of-1s at LTS with obviously eight total preferences. So we're pretty excited about that one. That gets to race in like 10 days, and then obviously we'll hit the breeding barn. Call it 28 days after that. Yeah, Chicken Smack looking through. Yeah, I think. I mean, I'd have to double check. I know a lot of people track this a lot closer than even I do. Shout out to VJJ, Golden Boot, Nate, LFC, some real accountants putting some real brain power behind what numbers are right, how to do your right cost basis on things. And, you know, I guess the one piece of actual financial advice I would give tonight is like, do your taxes right, or at least right to the best of your knowledge and probably to the best of the knowledge of a paid professional. I think if you've been around since we've started live, you've probably made enough money that it's a real consideration to make sure you're on the up and up on everything, because if this game grows and continues to prosper the way we all hope it does, doing it wrong this year, even if this wasn't like your biggest year, if the next year is even better, you're still kind of leaving yourself open there. So do them right or pay someone to do them for you. Shout out to Hero. I'm gonna dodge the last part of that. I think we'd all pronounce it the same. I think this is one of the gentlemen that reached out to us earlier this week about a horse and bought it. And then I had to ask, I kind of got nervous in the transaction because it doesn't matter to me. Like, it's not my prerogative to understand what everybody's going to do with the horses they buy from us. But it was kind of an interesting piece in that I think this is it. Yeah, it was an LDF, and it's from Persian Bold, which didn't get a lot of run, and it's got Shawnee Bear in it, so it's got no 1-of-1s in it. It's an S- from an A+ and an S-, so not too big of a jump. It was age 1 already. It's a filly, all good things. And when he'd asked about it, I was like, of course, try to help new stables out, give you a little bit of a discount based on what existing sales have been. You can fact check that if you'd like, but it was below the cohort of horses that it sold with similar age, similar gender, and similar total preferences. And then it's got this 1.5-star dirt, and I didn't really even consider that in my evaluation until after I'd agreed to sell it for the price that I suggested we'd sell it for. So I asked after, like, are you guys taking this LTF or are you going to stay LDF with it? And if you've listened to me stream ever, like, we have the archetypes that should be able to make LTS. We have LTF. We have LTS. We have RTF. We have LDF. All three of those have 2 of the 3 components of LTF, yet we're still not chasing LTF ourselves. It seems as if you can just get better stats elsewhere, and the preference themselves, meaning the preference is for left turf and firm as opposed to left turf soft, or as opposed to left dirt firm, or even right turf firm, don't outweigh just the sheer stats and quality you can get from just staying in an archetype. But this is like, if you were going to try to make LTF, like, this is one piece you could probably do it from, because you could take this to an LTS. Now, the one of one LTSs would have either 1 star soft if it was a scuba, or 1.5 star soft if it was the ticket taker or the jockey one. So that means your most likely outcome is probably still like 1.5 stars firm, maybe even 2 stars firm. And then it should have either 3 or 2.5 turf. So you should get a 1-star turf maybe. And then left, I mean, you'll either stay 2.5, maybe 2, maybe 3. So let's say like the high end of the range, you get 3 left, 1.5 firm, and then 1 turf. Like, that's not bad. That's pretty close to the top total preferences that LTF would got to in beta, and you're doing it in a single breed. I'm just not positive it's a good horse if you do that, but maybe worth a punt. Maybe give it a shot. Maybe don't do it on your first breed and get your LTF or LEF pieces going, and then try it. Yeah, Tom from Blue Elder is always good for a wisecrack towards me, but for sure. I got is it Ben Stein? Who's the for dry red eyes guy? That's my. I should go to Halloween as that guy all the time. I could probably even pull off the voice. Yeah, there we go. Shout out to Trot and Trailblazer. Trailblazer saw another big race today with like a 0 firm soft horse. Like, it seems like he's got the market cornered on those. And it's certainly working for him. So love to see his success. Hate to see that it happens against us. But Zealous. The next thing I wanted to talk through was expectations for Crown in game. Now, the team has promised an announcement of detail before the next season starts, which is, again, 10 plus days, less than 11, more than 10, about how Crown will be distributed in future seasons, including season 10, which is the next racing season. Right now, I believe 4.2 million Crown is allocated across the season, and you'd have to keep in mind that when it's across the season, that's based on the total horse population and a function of the race entry fee. So each race it's not pro rata anymore, which is a good thing, but it gets a portion based on its entry fee and the total race population. So I'll just kind of, as background here, have who's the leading investor in each of the in each of the tracks. Shout out to David, Horse Racing Capital, having Xing Moon, DeStables. Now that I'm a peasant owner of DeStables, I guess I'll root for Golden Empire Casino getting the best volume. Big Brain, absolute legend. He's got the Japanese track. Walhalla's got the Orlando track, and then Stable Income takes the Australian track. So congrats on that, and obviously congrats on your massive bags of Crown. That seems to be a well thought out strategy at this point. But the track yield that they're going to get is going to be a function of race entry fees and race entry fill rates, I guess I'll call them. Like, right now, we're seeing a lot of races that'll have 12 of 12 entrants. 14 of 14 entrants isn't unheard of, to the extent that the 16 horse lobbies exist. Those normally get like 12 or 14. So you're seeing very full races. And if it's at Golden Empire Casino, DeStables is getting 20% of the entry fee for whoever pays to enter. So if it's a 12 horse race and 10 enter, they're getting 20% of the 10 entrants. The 12 is sort of irrelevant in that case. And if it's a 16 horse race and 12 enter, they're getting 20% of, 12 entrants at that point. So the fill rate matters for this screen. It matters for what your track yield is going to be. It matters for what your expectations for your Crown yield, if you are a staker, are. That is important. If you have questions, comments, concerns about that, I would encourage you to ask David or ask Amish or ask other people that are making informed decisions, and again, their own opinions, not financial advice, even in their respect, of what a fair value of Crown is. That's not what I want to talk about. I care, but I don't care. One, because we're not a track staker. But two, that's, in my opinion, it's mostly irrelevant to the price action of Crown. Now, if you told me your track yield goes down, your yield on your Crown staking goes down, should that negatively impact the price of Crown? Logically, yes. I think what we see in crypto, we'll call them utility coins as opposed to the other French term for what you would call coins. I think people kind of YOLO it a little bit. They're not as concerned about the yield from a project like this. Now, they do care about yield if they go to any of the other bookmark tabs I've got here, Camino, MarginFi, Drift. People are very concerned about yield there. But people are going to speculate on coins regardless of what yield looks like. Some people that own probably a ton of Crown probably aren't even participating in staking. I don't know those numbers. Maybe David does have an idea of what circulating supply of Crown is versus what's actually staked at tracks. I wouldn't be surprised if it's, I don't know, like just this is a total guess. I'll say it's 60%. So at that point, if you're talking like 60% is concerned about what the yield is, and maybe they're not even that concerned because they're like permables, like, you know, if the yield on staking goes down, is David going to sell his Crown? Probably not. Can't speak for him. If the yield on staking goes down, is Big Brain going to sell his Crown? I really doubt that one. And I'd probably say the same for the rest. Now, obviously, they're one staker out of a total of 972, 901, 915, 886, 891. You can withdraw your staked Crown at any time. You would just lose the yield for that given season. So you would expect to see some sale pressure immediately after the season ends. And if someone wanted to beat that because they were dissatisfied with their yield, obviously they could withdraw at any time. Maybe that happens like a week after staking locks or what have you. But the moral is these guys have a lot of Crown, not just the majority stakeholders, but everybody that's staked there. And I don't think they're incentivized to sell it, even if the yield goes down. And if they're not incentivized to sell it, what's going to happen in the racing ecosystem is we're going to go from 4.2 million Crown gifted by the team, credit to the team, shout out to the team, across all of the race lobbies. Now, if we look at what do we have for, we'll go back to, again, shout out to Gap Data. I'll take age mostly off. What I want to look at is racing. So we can go back. In total population, we're damn close to 15,000 horses. Our stable might put us over 15,000 self here in 10 days. But if you look at racing, there's 3,580 racers. Of that, none of them are going to be like retirement age because the first foals are what, 5? Maybe there'll be 6 at that point. Don't quote me on that, but it's something like that. Like they're mostly not going to be retired. So if we have 3,580 now, we're not going to lose any this next season. Take my word for it. What do we have for 2-year-olds only? I gotta click off that so it allows it to refresh. So we're going to add 1,530. So we'll go back to the calculator as opposed to, you know, actually just using Excel like I normally would do. 1,530 plus, what did I say, 3,580. So we'll have 5,110 in racer count in all likelihood. Well, I guess we'll lose fillies. So call this a subtotal. Now I should be using Excel. What you would want to know is of this population. Oh, sorry, these are racing. Let's start from scratch here. Let's rewind. So total 1,475, racing 3,580. That includes 2-year-olds. What I meant to ask was, what are we going to have for 1-year-olds? Obviously, they won't be racing. We're going to add 2,200 racing horses in, call it 10 days time. And what we will probably lose is 752. So like I said, down 752. I'm just going to tab that so I remember the number. And we will go up, take off Philly here, 2254. So again, I've got the calculator on the other screen. Sorry, guys. That's a net of 1502, 1,500 on the dot, basically, of horses we will add to the racing population in all likelihood. Maybe some of the fillies actually stay in race that are 2-year-old now. So we go from 4.2 million crown dispersed amongst the population, which was 3,580 now. We're going to add 1,500 more horses to that racing population, net, more or less. And crown is going to go down. Now, like I said, we don't know what the specifics of the decrease in crown are going to be. My assumption would be they won't go scorched earth or tear the Band-Aid off option, which I think was option 2 maybe, and they'll do some either percent decrease each season or a stated amount decrease or bonding curve decrease type situation. So it won't be scorched earth, but it'll be less and it'll be spread wider. Why that matters is, even if I have, we can go back to or we can look at our stable here. So put 0 in there. Absolute horsepower. Oh my God, we have an imposter stable. Who done it? Oh my goodness. Okay. 234 total. Some retirees obviously in there. Quite a bit. Racing, we have, well, we can just do racing. We only have 22 racers. That number drops real quick. 22 racers. And then what I will welcome to the track, again, will be 1-year-olds. So I'll take 22 plus 48. Again, I'll put this in the calculator. That gets you to 70 possible racers. But then the question is, how many 2-year-old fillies do we have? 29. That'll be nice to be able to breed those. We love that. So we take 29 off. So I will go from racing. Again, we'll take all the filters off at this point and just leave racing on. I will go from racing 22 horses to 41 horses. So you would think that I could potentially get more crown. I've got 41 horses, not 22. That's almost double the amount of horses. I can assure you, we won't look at it, the grade of the horses we will be bringing to the track will be quite nice. You can just take our word for that. But it's unlikely that I get anywhere near the amount of crown that I'm getting on a daily basis today, because that's going to be two-pronged. We are racing horses today. That absolutely suck. And you can't buy it. It's not for sale. It's a good piece, but it sucks. Total career earnings of 1,700 Derby. 12 starts, has not hit the board. You go to the charts, showing USDC. It's still made $400 racing. So that is why we're racing it. It's still making us money. Next season, if you cut crown, basically in any of the options, but obviously the scorched earth one, but in any of the options, like I just parked this horse after 4 races. Like I knew it was bad. It puts up some decent flea figures, like 70, 74. Like 74 is pretty good. That was yielding, so maybe it's juice. 70 was yielding, so maybe it's juice. But 70 on good, like that's not bad. 70 on soft, and it's a firm horse, like that's not bad. But just for whatever reason, like it's super consistent. It just gets 4th and 5th every time. So we won't race that horse. So when I say we have 41 horses that we'll race, next season, chances are it's really closer to like 25 maybe, because I'll want to race with the expectation of hitting the board, which is what we should all want. Like, that's in my tweet thread today, I suggested that we'll finally get to racing, which I like. I mean, there's a lot of people that say the game is crown right now. They've been made to look mostly right at this point, even though I think there are a lot of stables operating as if they want to race profitably. And obviously, like I said, I believe our stable has done that. We're not in the top 10 in gross earnings. We might be in net. I don't know. I don't know that we know a way to look at that very easy. Sorry, I'm going in circles here. Stable stats, again, lifetime, a little over 10K. And then about $1,000 in season 9. Like, that's not bad. This is our worst crop of racers we've welcomed to the track at any time. And I am pretty bullish on the next crop that's going to hit the track. So, the moral of all of that was to say, if you don't think the track stakers are going to sell, because most of them are like uber diehards, and even if their yield goes down, they're still getting a pretty good yield, even if the yield goes down. And if the stables that had been selling daily, i.e. us, basically convey like it's so unlikely that I can generate anywhere near. We could probably set an over-under. We could revisit this in like a month. Like, we are 10 days away from the end of the season. Do I even generate more or less than 26,400 crown next season? It's probably less. And like I said, we got 10 full days left in this season. So if we're going to generate less crown, other people that are legitimately racing 3 horses in every race, knowing like 2 are total glue and they're hoping to hit the board with a 3rd, but even if they don't hit the board, they're fine. Like, that behavior, I do think changes next season, which again is a good thing. But that means they're generating less crown, because when they're racing in A and a 10,000 Derby entry fee right now, like, let's go find one. I'm sure we certainly can. We'll pull up Pickens. Hopefully we've got Picklezook in the audience. We're very appreciative of this horse. So here's a, call it $200 USDC race. 10 entrants, left turf, yielding. I swear I haven't looked at this since the race happened. I was disappointed to get 4th, even though 4th, Derby-wise, basically got the money back, and then obviously some nice crown yield there. But I bet you there's a green horse in here somewhere. There might even be 2. If there's 10 horses, I'm going to guess there's 2 green horses, green being A-, A, or A+. There are 3. And some decent preferences, like, fine. I'm not going to publicly shame anybody. But I can almost guarantee you that those 3 aren't racing for 200 when they cut crown. They might race in A+ grade restricted races at RTF or LTS, or an attempt at left turf firm gone bad. Maybe they race there. Maybe they race in allowances. Like, they can still race, but they're not going to be entering the $200 races. And the question remains, will that just mean this will become a 7-horse race as opposed to a 10-horse race? And if it's 7, like I said, if the track stakers are getting 20% of 7 as opposed to 20% of 10, the question you have to ask yourself is that going to make anybody sell? Because I'm saying this person, and this person aren't getting 315 crown for racing their A+ one time next season. They're just not. So if they're not getting it, and the people that are staking are okay with this being a 7-horse race as opposed to a 10-horse race, then in my opinion, not financial advice, I think crown goes up. And I think it could go up pretty meaningfully. There's always going to be like a balancing act though, right? If, again, not financial advice, do your own research. If crown doubled and call it like a month's time, then the A+s are back to racing these races. Even if you cut them on a crown yield, what they're getting in USDC equivalent because they're paying a USDC price to enter. They're getting Crown, which trades daily at whatever price is. So price goes up, Derby stays the same. Maybe you get more people taking chances again. But then the other factor when we talk about what are the track stakers faced with going into next season, shout out to Ghost, JPEG Lord owns the stable, Ghost runs. Tabat, which I think he got as a claimer, so you get Pickens and Tabat beating an S+. Both of those were claiming horses. He made 67,000 Derby, call it what, 700, almost $800 probably. I should be able to know that math. He makes $800. Let's say he gets 60% of the pot, but the pot goes down by these 3 entrants. So does that squeeze the top horses a little bit? Like, there's going to be a lot of factors at play as it relates to staking your crown at tracks, horse valuations, and racing outcomes. Because if there's only 7 of 10 here, then instead of this number being 314 for this season, instead of it being 315 for this season, it goes up. Crown's paid out based on the total race. Doesn't matter how many entrants are in there. So the crown yield is going to be balanced out, but I just don't see the stables that are selling daily being able to earn as much crown as they're earning today. I'll get caught back up on chat. That was a long, speaking of blows, that was a long blowhard rant there. Lacey, yeah, I mean, there's a chance that I have to let the dog out at like 3:30 in the morning and I'm entering claimers blurry-eyed again, and it happens, but I don't think so. We've got a couple S Colts that I'm not willing to put in 250K claimers, even though they're not overly strong racers. Yeah, never mind. Yeah, I think if we had a claiming race option of like 300, 350, if we keep pushing those up on the entry fees, then you can get some of those what looks to be like S20s on paper, Colts varieties in a lot more of those claiming races. Because there are horses with great preferences that just can't win. Like the one we looked at is pretty damn good preferences. We can go back to it. Again, no, an S20 doesn't exist anymore other than the retired ones. That was kind of just a benchmark we used in early live and understanding horse values. Yeah, 6 total preferences. Like, that's not that bad. It's only got 1 of 1 in it, so it's not going anywhere. Let's see what else we got. Gooch, shout out to Gooch. I've started to try to be a better racer because I feel it's the best way to sustain. Been profitable from racing Derby alone this season, or last season and this season. Yeah, I mean, I think there was people that were prioritizing racing as profitably as possible in a Derby sense, like way early in live, and I was like, is it really that important? I don't really care about being the most Derby profitable racing stable. I want to make the best stable possible via breeding, win as many races as possible, and have a good record. But having like the best Derby record isn't that important. But I think you're off to the right track of having done it last season and this season, as you say. I think that puts you in a better position next season, because even if you're racing to try to win now and you're racing correctly to win now and you are winning now, if you like that last race we looked at, if you took those 3 A+ out of there and your horse got second or third, that's some decent Derby with 3 A+ in there. But if those guys are gone, what you're making in Derby goes down as well. So even the people that are racing profitably, us, are going to face and feel the crunch of less crown being awarded. Do you think it will be feasible for them to allocate a dollar amount of crown to each race, and then that total crown value is determined at the time of the race entry closes? Maybe. I mean, I think they've got pretty good tracking systems in their site right now. Like, right, if the crown price changes, like if we looked at our stable stats before and we look at them now, what it'll say we've made in crown is going to be different. So it seems like they have some pretty good live data. I don't know that we need to do that. I mean, we're already seeing things where Like, let's see if the lobby's closed yet. If not, people will probably notice soon enough. Yeah, okay. It even went soft. I don't even know what the weather was. So we entered this race. I think we got 3 of the 9 horses. Will I have any of the 3 of the 9 horses after? I'm not saying claim them, do what you want. I entered this race back when Crown was probably like 78 cents. And then Crown goes up to 95 cents, and my horses are already registered. I can't do anything about it. They're going to make 144 a crown a piece, basically. I do think they were all entered with the intent to win. Now, the soft horse probably is the favorite here, but looking at morning line odds, we're better with that horse. A little bit worse here. A little bit worse yet here. Maybe we hit the board with 1. Maybe we hit the board with 2. Maybe we hit the board with 3. But if you told me that Crown was 88 cents, I probably would have been able, or would have been trying to find 175K claimer or 200K claimer for these horses. You got to run them somewhere. But I guess the point of your question is, we're already faced with making hard decisions on some race entry. Again, I think there's some room for improvement with the schedule. But if I'm making what I thought are good decisions 2 days before they become real meaningful decisions, I don't know that we need to add another variable of kind of indexing prices. I know you're saying it probably smooths the math out a little bit, but it probably overcomplicates it from what we need to. What else do we have? On-chain horses. So I haven't been in the Discord much since, but I'm not in there very often at all. Obviously not on formal terms for sure, but just really even in general. So I don't know where we are, where we were, where we're going with the discussion of having these assets be back on chain. Like it had started a long time ago. I mean, it probably started long before even like the beta started. I think the last time I'd seen a meaningful conversation about it is, I know Poseidon Racing had kind of candidly stated that it'd be very important for a person like him that these end up being on-chain assets. And I don't think the announcement itself gives us enough to truly have an informed discussion on it tonight, but we'll start where we can, because there's a few ways this could run out, in that they are on-chain assets, but they're, I should give credit. I can't remember who mentioned this to me, but someone had made the reference of, is it going to be like DraftKings Rainmakers, where yes, they're on-chain, they're on Polygon. They probably should switch to Salami, like all Momentum is. They're on-chain, but you can't take your Rainmakers cards, at least very easily. I think maybe after like 21 days or something, maybe you could take them to OpenSea or Blur. I'm talking out of my ass a little bit, but at the end of the day, your marketplace for Rainmakers cards is the DraftKings marketplace. No different than our horse marketplace is the Photo Finish Live marketplace. So if the only difference now between us and Rainmakers is Rainmakers cards are on chain and our horses are not on chain, then that is a great improvement. That is actually a really good thing to bring those on chain, because then you can have on chain metrics to say what are your total marketplace sales in the last month, and that can be verifiable data. It's not just numbers the team's reporting, it can be independently verified. Like, all those things are very good things. The announcement could mean that you could trade your horses on Tensor. I doubt that. I doubt that that's where we're going. Like that, I do think that would still be the best possible solution, especially since with the NFT standard that Salami's got now, that you can enforce royalties at the contract level. Like, it's not even a royalty evasion thing at that point. And certainly the Photo Finish Live marketplace might have better stats to help a buyer or seller make an informed decision. Like, I'm not saying that it wouldn't. Oh my God, when you get a new computer, it defaults to the tile view as opposed to the list view. We've got pretty good filters here. I wish we had better filters when it came to progeny or breeding. But if you want to embrace Web3, having it being an option on Tensor, I think is still valuable. a year ago, I think it would have been a lot more valuable than it is today. It seems like people are getting more and more comfortable with, call it the Web 2.3 gaming as opposed to the Web 3 gaming. But I think it does it does depend upon the full scope of what the announcement is. But in either case, it is a good announcement, and it's nice to see kind of, I'll call it some surprise and some delight of, I think oftentimes we don't see things in any project, not even necessarily PFL, like what are these people working on? What are they doing? What are they accomplishing? So it's kind of nice to see something where I didn't even know like the team was working on this. I didn't know it was a priority. And then basically it's more or less done or close to done. Like that's kind of nice. And it's kind of reassuring that, if you question what is going on, where are things at in the progress, are these ever going to be addressed, i.e. filters on progeny and breeding, but or race schedule in some spots, filly only, or not filly only claimers, but fillies and claimers, maybe better coverage, some types of things like that. But it's nice to see that when they ship something that you weren't expecting or weren't even paying attention to, that's positive affirmation that work is being done. Not that I'm not saying it wasn't done. I don't know. I just get myself in traps when I make comments about this team. Everybody that's been here long enough knows what that means. Just want to see what we've got here. Yeah, Lacey had said Sting can maybe make that happen. Yeah, it's only the person that's piloting that sees this, but I do definitely think less of you if you do use the tile view. I think the tile view is only usable on one day of each season, and that's Fool's Day. So yeah, I think a lot less of you, Lacey. We call it being Minnesota nice, actually. What else we got? So that's it. Like I will be paying attention to what that ultimately means. Again, perfect world, you own your assets. Like that's the differentiator. Like, are people going to trade PFL horses on Tensor? Probably not. It gives you the benefit of, if they did, you would see some volume on Tensor. So when you're looking at like top 10 projects, like when I swept, I always say we because I normally operate on behalf of the stable. But when I swept DeStables this morning, like, and some other people bought some. I know Mr. B had bought some. I saw some other people reached out and said they saw it and they bought a couple cents too. Like DeStables is the 74th highest volume collection on Tensor in the last 24 hours. Like that's value, because you get a lot of people that don't race JPEG horses and do stare at this screen all day. And if they see something pop up in like the 1 hour charts or the 24 hour and they see a bunch of sales and a bunch of volume begets volume. So like in that sense, it's good. But like ownership of your assets is also something that is important to a lot of people that are Web3 native. I would like to see it, but it's certainly not a deal breaker. And like I said, in the year that's passed, that was kind of a full-on bear. I think it matters less than it would have mattered to me before that. The next topic, and I'm going to stall here a little bit because I see the JJ's in the chat, and he had maybe suggested he was going to hop up on stream. And the next topic is less nerdy, and it's less about me, and it's less about our stable. It is about expectations and how to prepare for the 10 days before season 10. So if he wants to join the conversation, I'll stall a little bit for him to get up here. You throw up the bat signal. Sometimes you get Batman. Welcome, JJ. Or do you have your audio or what?
What's up? Can you hear me?
Oh, I can.
Is it working now?
It's a little echoey because you're probably, giving me, not your best effort and not using earbuds or something, or you got an earbud in.
I got one in, yeah. Is it still echoey?
Yeah, it is, but
shit. Let me do something real quick. I'm gonna drop and I'll rejoin.
Okay. Famous last words. All right. We'll give him a second. So we'll go back to the homepage because I never visit this enough. 10 days and 14 hours until the next season starts. I'm sure Doughboy will try to rival my stream again, which would be like the minute fulls drop. I've already got the day off. I've got the next day off. So if he wants to go head-to-head streaming again, I like my odds. But until then, and I don't know that I will personally stream between now and then, but I will be preparing for season 10. A lot of it will have to do with what the team announces on what Crown's going to look like. I still have to name those. What did we say? Like 22, or it was a higher number than that. My stable. What do we got for 1-year-olds? Filter. Again, more or less stalling for the JJ. So this isn't super important. Seven S's, which I'm excited about basically all of those. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27. I know this is riveting content. 30, 31 S minuses and maybe a handful of A. Oh, A plus. We've got an A in there, man. So a lot of horses that I apparently have to name in the next 10 days. So I see the JJ's back. I'm going to ask him if he's got a naming convention for his horses this season. Are you going to do like Christmas meals or Christmas gifts, or what's the theme for the 1-year-old RVA racing horses?
Sorry, is it echoey now? Is that better?
Yeah, it's not a ton better, but I mean we can just roll with it. It's not. This isn't a professional production.
The 1-year-olds, is that was the question?
Yeah, you did Thanksgiving meals and sides for last crop. So are we going to keep the holiday theme, or we're going to go to Gwen Stefani songs, or what are we doing this time?
I think might go Christmas related. Haven't decided, but I think there's a lot of angles to go there, since that's when they'll make their debut about a week before. But I did that with Beta, I think, last year too.
Here you go. You've got, is there 7? Was there 8? I should know how many reindeer there are, but
yep, I used those last year in Beta. That was definitely one of the angles I was going to use. So hopefully it doesn't get stolen.
Oh my God, you're sniped. You're gonna have to name while on stream.
I need it right now. Yeah. I actually have a good crop this season because I got all my Mercury stuff coming.
Yeah. Major siring stud of ours. I don't know if we used him. We didn't use him here.
You didn't use him that month, no. Actually, you
would have
here.
This one's kind of sexy.
Yeah.
This is like a combined 24 total matches. Can someone count it for me? Not for sale, doesn't matter. But what are you looking forward to in season 10? And is there anything you're trying to do before season 10? Are you selling more horses?
Yeah.
Are you looking to buy horses? Are you adjusting your stud prices based on what's out there, or anticipating kind of what our 2-year-old colts might hit the barn? Those types of things.
Yeah, I don't think I'm retiring anything. I put a couple new studs out last month. The only one I would retire maybe is Superman, but that I don't expect him to get anything in the barn if I do. So I'm probably just gonna race him until he's done. So honestly, for the new season, I want to just keep racing claimers. Honestly, I've had tons of fun racing those big pots with the higher up entry fees, things like that. So definitely not selling any colts. Definitely not retiring any. So I mean, as you progress in age, you can kind of just go up and down the ladder when your horse is peaking. So that's kind of the plan for colts and for the fillies this month. I don't know. I think there's a couple new studs that are going to come out. I think Spongeworthy, the S Plus, is going to hit the barn. Monkey Tennis has an S Plus that's going to hit the barn in right turf. So definitely looking to hit both of those colts. I did not get to hit what is Breaking Bad's the Little Dynamite. I didn't get to use that last time, so I'm sure I'll try to grab a breed before it sells out. So I think there'll be a lot of new studs this time, and right turf needs it. We've been basically Gen Zeros the whole way through, I think, to this point. Can't really think of many that I hit that weren't Gen Zeros, so that's probably what I'm most looking forward to is those new studs, to see how they look.
Yeah, this one, we looked at this one last time I streamed as well. Pretty solid record. Obviously, I already raced through the 4-year-old season, but you're probably right. Maybe you explicitly know, but you're probably right. I think some of these, what I'll call cash cows, will probably find more lucrative pastures in the breeding barn than they've even been able to find on the track.
Yeah.
And that's just a function of the crown changes. Like, no matter
we'll
what they
see
do.
what they actually come out with. There'll obviously be less out there, but if we're above $1 a crown, I mean, when they made the decision to race the 4-year-old season, how much was the crown was probably at 55 cents? So it's doubled. So if they cut it in half, you're still making the same you did decision. If it stays at $1, I think we're back down to like 85 now. So we'll see. Yeah, but those are the two probably. We'll see what they charge. We'll see what the stats look like. I haven't hit much Mundo or Walter White in my stable on either side, firm or soft. So we definitely
this would be one. This would be one we would for sure use depending upon price. I'd asked him about. I was so disappointed. Now that we're like brothers, being part of DeStables, like maybe now he'll do it. But I'd asked him about the one what's like the 3-year-old or the 4-year-old.
Carlitos is 5.
No, Star World. This one. It's the same breed, right? Yeah, it's just worse. So my logic was, you don't need this one. You have a better one coming in 2 seasons. Let me have this.
Right. But then you never a paying customer.
I maybe will have to circle back. Well, I mean, if he retires this one now, if he retires them both, who knows what he's going to do with the S Plus? Maybe he does keep racing it because it'll be a 3-year-old, right? So if he wants to race for the major,
right?
Maybe he does keep racing.
I think it is a long distance preference where a lot of street stuff has been, sprinters.
So I would say that this could possibly be in the barn without the S Plus there, but if this is in the barn and the S Plus is there, and there'll be no shortage of Mundo related sires in the barn, like, I don't know if this gets hit very much, but if the stats kind of, again, the radials of, is this close to being an S Plus or is it kind of middle of the road S? And shout out to MJ. Don't always get to catch some of his streams, but I did catch someone last night, and I forget what the terminology was, but it's almost like wins above replacement. It's the same thing we've talked about for 2 years without just actually deciding on a term for it. So I think he's done it where, like, if this is an S and it's got 4 S stack grades and 2 S pluses, we would have always called it like +2 or whatever. Like, he's got a name for it. So if this is close to, or seems to be, again, radials aren't known, but if it seems to be close to an S plus, chances are it's not that much worse. But the breeding barn is a fickle beast, especially without filters. I would think that this one isn't going to get too many covers, but it is something I would gladly use 35 times if I owned it. So to be continued. Maybe we'll negotiate on stream.
He sold out a different horse. I can't remember if it's Serena or not. Big Gift. I think it's not. I think it's one of his S minus and what. And he sold that out the last 2 months. I think at a rather cheap price. So, I see that pop up. Yeah, I'm redoing my whole office, and I just haven't picked out a mic yet. So, bear with me. I will get one. I think what the echoing is from is the monitors I bought have speakers in them, and I thought I turned them off, but I guess I didn't.
It's possible. We'll probably do a public vote if we can ever allow you on stream again after this one, but we'll get through. We'll get through. But yeah, I mean, Bob, if you want to take it a step further, like as we do tend to make Vijay a whipping boy because he calls himself Vijay, like easy target. I would suspect that if we went to his stable, his silks still look like my niece drew them, who's 5. So maybe throw like $50 to a Fiverr artist and get a better logo than that. Like, if you don't want a horse on it, which I know you've publicly stated, like
I do not.
get a crown on top of the A, like make the A like a mountain. Are there any mountains in Virginia? Probably not. Maybe Western Virginia.
There are in Western Virginia, not in Richmond. Yeah.
Perfect. So throw like a crown on top of the A, make it look like in a mountain. Boom. Give me $50. I've designed your logo for you on stream.
Yep. Yeah, I have a buddy who does graphic design. He keeps telling me he's going to do one, and he hasn't. But yeah, I've kept that for since beta. I just had that since they allowed us to throw it on there for the first time. So yeah, pretty lazy.
No one else was going to steal it. You act like you kept it, like everybody else wanted it.
No, just set it and forget it. You don't see it. I don't watch many races, so I don't see the atrocity that is those. And I don't podium enough for it to be visible either.
Poker player with another logical suggestion here. Balloon arch over the RVA. Very easy.
I like that.
Yeah. Shout out to the team for another great addition here. David probably appreciates it. Lacey probably appreciates it. But instead of who owns XYZ stable, now we've got it. And the links to Twitter are nice as well. It would be nice, actually, if the Discord linked as well. But I don't know how to manage that, if you'd have to make that be like a create friend request or what that would look like. So you've spent all $50,000 then? Like, give me an update on your life since the sale.
Life since the sale. So the news was broke to my real life friends by Roar and Hammy. I have 2 friends who are also in Salon NFTs with me back in September 21. Never could convince any of them to get into PFL themselves, but so they saw the tweet before I could give them a heads up. So they started blowing me up, and then they shared it with other people before anyone. I don't really talk about it much to most people in the real life world, so it was kind of a task to kind of break down what exactly I'm involved in and how the fuck how did you get $50,000 for something that doesn't actually exist? You're right back to stage 1 with like, how do you trust it, all those questions. So yeah, it lined up perfect. I was meeting with the tax guy this week, so he's now aware, and yeah, a lot of it's going to go to unfortunately to the IRS, but yeah. I mean, I was already in the process of redoing my office, so I definitely bought a couple more toys for it. But that's about it. I haven't spent much yet. How many did I onboard? Nine.
If you can't onboard one person after selling one imaginary horse for 50,000 USDC, like you're probably right to about an accountant because you've got no fucking chance in sales, like none.
No, definitely not. Not something I'm comfortable with. I'm shilling. Just keep myself, and like I said, I tried way back when, but I never kept pushing it. So they said that's on me for not pushing harder and getting them involved way back when. But yeah, at this point they're out.
Yeah. This is somewhat of a valid point here by Bobby Boucher. It's really hard because my position is always going to be in the JJ's too. I'm sure he would echo this as well. It's like, if I told someone like I'm super bullish on the game and think we have like a very long runway from like, even if things, I'm not saying they are, but let's say like hypothetically they were already on the downturn, like the run out of a downturn of a game like this could be like a full year. Like, it's going to be good, but what's going to be good for me versus what's going to be good for the person that buys their first horse tomorrow is different. Again, that's not necessarily FUD. It's a different conversation with
right.
How do you make the best bang for your buck when you don't get to turn out 93 foals like we get to in 10 days type of thing. So.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, I have a couple, there's a couple times. I remember one of my friends asked, like, when Fine Phillies floor, like, went to, like, 6. He was like, should I get back in? And I was like, I have no idea, dude. Like, Soul was expensive then. I was like, I have no idea. And then my brother asked me, I think over the summer, was it too late? And I was just like, I mean, I waited 2 years for it to go live. I was like, I have no idea where we're about to go. So I couldn't even push him in then, and it would have been a great time, right? I could have given him 2 Phillies myself, and, he could have built up a ton by now. So, yeah, he was the only one that's reached out, and I fumbled that. I could have helped him out, but he's gonna get a nice Christmas present. So
yeah, Poker Player, I need you to just zoom in on his screen, and we can.
I didn't even think about that. You can dox me if you do. That's not good.
It's probably a diploma from a university and a CPA license, if I had to guess.
Geez, I'm just gonna take this down. Please don't dox me. I didn't even think. See, here I am with my new stuff.
Yeah, if your monitor's better or your camera's better, like, it could be a real thing.
Let me do this.
Nice. That is very funny.
Closet now. It is. Yeah,
there's still one in there. It ain't any better.
It's not on my screen. It doesn't show. Does it show on yours now?
That's still a little bit there. It's fine. People are nice, right? There's no internet trolls out there. Yeah, we love Ted. RVA teed that up before he got here. I confirmed we love Ted. It'll be curious to see how much he buys. Like, I'm not gonna, even if he's got 200 horses now, which I think he does. Like, we looked at the pregnant mare count. You'd probably missed most of that conversation, but like the real global population he has is like 200 horses. So, like, at what point does he have enough? I don't know. I'm done calling when someone's got enough horses. I hope he keeps buying.
I mean, I saw a tweet today. I saw a tweet today. Somebody was kind of analyzing what his return has been so far, and he's made a ton back already. Like, he's put a ton in, and that's without him, like you said, without him being able to sell any foals. So, like, nothing saying he can't
get
sell
stud fees. He's not getting any stud fees.
Right, no stud fees, no foals. So there's nothing saying he can't trade. Basically, now just start trading, like, sell some of his, buy different stuff. So that's what I've done when I've bought at this point. It's sell one to buy another. And you basically count it as a trade.
That's what 360 Win had done too. I mean, we forget 360 Win because of how generous Ted has been, but obviously he was the big buyer before Ted, and has since been a huge asset for the game even still. And I think, a lot of what he's doing is pieces that aren't big on his radar anymore, selling those. And I think in large part he's probably made money on, again, I hesitant to pull it up because I don't want it to look bad, and I didn't look at it at first, but I would assume he's done pretty well since he joined. And like I said, he was the big buyer before Ted. And if these big buyers are having good outcomes, like, that's what more could you possibly want?
Yeah, I found out Ted's a big Crown guy as well. He was a majority stakeholder there for a second, so he's got a bag of that too, which I'm sure he bought at at least half of what it's worth now. So that's doubled. So I think they're in a good spot.
Yeah, shout out to 360 Win. Positive Derby in season 9, obviously Crown, and then positive on the marketplace / breeding. And he bought enough pieces that eventually he probably collects some stud fees as well. So, I mean, breeding can be expensive if you're only choosing the top tier stuff every time and you don't have it in house. But I think the people that are choosing it every time and don't have it in house will eventually have it in house. There's probably no better example than Olas, our Lord and Savior, GVG. Shout out to his prolific $115,000 deficit in breeding. But I think he eventually is going to have a lot of the studs people want to use, whether that's from Primetime, Shockwave, Hot Sauce, Benedict, all the RDM.
The only thing about GVG is he tends to just get fillies. right? So that's why he doesn't have anything in the barn. Because he's just had
Well, I
like
just assume,
Philly luck. He's got like all his F+ Phillies.
yeah. I mean, I know you're complimenting his luck there, but maybe it's a good talking point in the sense that you sold an S+ Colt, which again, for that number, I think most people would have been lining up to sell it. And hopefully, maybe not for you, but for all of us, hopefully that looks like stupid cheap in like 3 months' time. Like there'd be nothing better than if that looks stupid cheap. But
Yeah.
where do you stand on, like, again, for the broader audience, our conversations tend to skew towards S-, S+, all good for us. We talk about them because I know them fairly intimately in the archetypes that we compete in. It wouldn't be very beneficial for you if I talked about A+, A's, and A- because I just don't know them very well. But at what point are you questioning the utility of, we'll use an A+ in your case for one, Balloon Arch, the RTF Colt, but also maybe more pointedly, the S- is like, do stud fees go up for a horse like Better Than Most or Mercury? Do they come down because now we have people that have a lot of S fillies and they're going to be less inclined to use S- Colts again? Maybe not you and I. I think we are using S- on the Colt side probably more than most. Maybe doing it better than most, pun intended. But where do you think we are in the life cycle of Gen 0 Colts as breeders?
I think they're still just as useful as ever. The floor for a filly is what, like 100K Derby, something like that. So like, every low grade filly is still worth breeding, right? So if your B's and your A- and A's are still breeding options, because filly floor is close to $1,000 or whatever, right? So like
$1,500.
Unless there's a shift away from preferences and building up slowly, and until it makes sense to go, because an S+ is 4K, I think all these Gen 0s are still going to be hitting Gen 0 Colts. Mostly because I don't think there's been a lot of slow breeding, right? There has been a lot of jumping up quickly in grade. So you think about archetypes like LTS, where you can hit some of the best studs, Gen 0 studs for men. And I've done it myself. I have 2 LTS A fillies and I use them. So I don't think there's been a lot of like true replacements, especially just when you get back to the makeup of a Gen 0 being so like box. Like, you don't have a bad outlier. So as soon as you have a one blemish, like you have an A+ horse, 8, 9 preferences, but as soon as it has an A in speed at RTF, where like Balloon Arch, has all A+ or S-, he's still the top option, and he is priced low. Like, I do have him priced at min. So I think they're still viable. I think they're viable for a while. I have sold one Gen 0 filly myself, but I still love the horses that I get from them, and I think you still can there's just forever until we hit users aren't coming in and buying up these lower fillies until that market crashes the price wise. I think those Gen 0s still have a good spot, and I think Better Than Most had one of his better months last month. I didn't use him but maybe a few times myself, and I think he still had like 17 or 18 covers. So, and I haven't changed the price. So I think they're still, that's your old horse. Lacey bought it.
It helps when it's in the hands of a good person, but 17 out of 35 with only one of them being internal is super impressive. I mean, you made the point on LTS that the S's are available for essentially men. There's only two options at the S- level for Gen 0. So this seems to be a logical piece where I think you would even agree when you go to RTF. Maybe there's less S's, but there are a lot of S- options with different bloodlines that LTS doesn't have the benefit of. But pretty solid ROI on this transaction. Shout out Lacey.
Mhm.
126K, and made that back this month alone, probably. So good deal. I like when people have good outcomes. That tends to
Yeah,
mean
people
they
that are
come
willing
back.
to take chances on stuff. As like Gen Zeros were retiring, maybe before some of them should have, because we thought the studs were going to be lucrative. I mean, some people sold some really good Gen Zero S Colts that because like, oh, it wasn't the top one and there wasn't enough fillies to fit demand, but now Serenity now sells out in 6 seconds, and there's tons
Yeah.
left over. So if you had the wherewithal to buy it ahead of time, I think Lacey's bought a handful of those S's. They weren't the best LTS in terms of Gen Zero tickets, but they're getting plenty of coverage because now there's enough that need it.
Yeah, just curious what we have out there for. I mean, I admittedly don't look at this as much as I used to because we have the 3 1-of-1 at the. Actually, more curious about S minus at the S level. This is an old horse of ours. Nice to see that got hit. They get 10K every time. That's a pretty good number then too. Moonchild, that's the Gen Zero, so that got 11 out of 35. That's pretty good. Oakland Tidesong. I don't know if this is still owned by the guy, but yeah, this is maybe I'll call it most steadfast owners we have. I think it's Goliathus. He doesn't own it anymore, but Oakland was his A+ LTS that I tried everything, including offering 4 A+ fillies for 1 A+ filly, which obviously in hindsight, he should have taken that deal, but he didn't. He stuck to his guns. It was something I definitely wanted pretty bad. This guy got 50K this month. That's pretty good. What did he buy the horse for? Maybe got claimed. Claimed for 80K. He made 50K this month.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that doesn't suck. Gideon, but this must be from a 101.
That's a Gen Zero, yeah.
This is from a 101. Yeah, there's really not much out here. Blood Moon. So yeah, when we talk about do prices go up or do they go down for Gen Zeros? Especially at the A+ and the S-
Blood Moon's
level.
gone up, I believe.
Yeah, this would be a good example of
Yeah,
he
15K
was
to 30.
even lower. Yeah. I mean, he's fluctuated price a fair bit. I think we were a lot of the use cases here when it was 16K, and then he came down to 12, then back up to 15, and now is 20. And you could make an argument. He only got 5 this month, but you could probably make a case that he could probably go higher for one more season if he really wanted to. But I'm not sure his thinking or what he's trying to accomplish in breeding. Let's see what Lacey's got here in chat. She said she got lucky. I doubt that. She probably had some Vote for Neptune 2024 campaign going on in the breeding barn or something like that. Zerath and Whippet. Yeah, Whippet. That was like one. I had been campaigning for someone to buy that horse for the 200K it was listed for a long time. We should have just bought it ourselves. The reason we didn't is we had a better version of the same horse. It was retired. It was Whippet could race. That horse probably absolutely crushed on the track. I don't know when it retired. I'll look at that one offline sometime.
There were a few that ran all the way through A to LTS, so it wasn't like free that you were going to be the only S. Like it would have been if you left, like Big Brain left. What was the guy? Yeah, at RT, and he was just like the only S that was still racing. So like he had such high win equity when he raced. I think like Slow Gary and DeStables and I think Soulmate left a couple of LTS running the whole time. So yeah, LTS was definitely a thin beast.
Do we have any other listener questions? Otherwise, we'll probably try to wrap in the next 10-ish minutes or so here. We've been going for about a $140. I'm a little worried if we wrap this soon, I'll still find a way to make a DFS lineup that I'll regret in an hour. So I would be happy to take some questions because I don't even want to watch that football game, much less have money on it. Yeah, Lacey said a few of the examples that kept running. You're right.
Mm-hmm.
Perlino ran all the way through the 8-year-old season as well. So that was like our big blunder from like a decisions of why did you retire the horses we did. We retired 2 LTSs that we didn't need to. And then at RTF, we could have kept either Jupiter or Mercury going. I think that one's worked out okay because it seems like Mercury has been a pretty good breeding option for most people involved. And had we kept that one racing, then we wouldn't have those outcomes yet. So that one worked out better with the benefit of hindsight. But on paper, and knowing that crown yield and the crown price going up, that would have been a nice piece to have through 8-year-old season 2.
For sure. Yeah, definitely excited for my Mercury pieces to see how they race. I got a couple S's and a couple S minuses from them. So,
what are you going to put not for sale in when you put him in the breeding barn? I need.
He's going to use him 35 times himself, and you're not going to get a chance to, Lacey. At least the first season.
Yeah, I would love to say that. I would love to say that the JJ's wrong, but in this case,
that's why I went ahead and hit some thin stuff while I could, because once you can fill it out, it's just game over.
So we can ask. I think at least Bryce is still in the audience. What do we think of? Because I don't think anybody talks about it, and I'm surprised. And now 35 seems like a reasonable number. It didn't really at the time or early seasons. I think everybody kind of agreed with that. And even if they thought like it wasn't a good number, they were probably like, well, let's leave it. It won't be a problem later on. And they end up being right there. But what are your thoughts on all of the breeding mechanics, whether that be a stud can breed 35 times, whether that be the minimum is $50 or internal listing is $100. You don't even have to list it publicly. All of those things. Is there anything you would like to see changed in breeding? And I will be like very pointed and honest here in that the last couple of seasons, we've done more or less what you've referred to of bred 35 times, but also done it strategically such that we could price them basically at the minimum. Like, so if anybody's robbing the breeding pot, it has been us. Now I'm not breaking terms of service. The horses are publicly listed. If someone wants to breed with them, they certainly can. Do you think I should be able to do that? Are there any other breeding changes you would like to see?
Yeah, I saw it as recently as maybe today or yesterday, somebody brought up just like how cheap 4,000 in is. Just when with the, like you said, if a filly, the cheapest filly is 120K Derby, and you can make it for 4,000, like still seems imbalanced. There probably still is a way to tier it to where it opens up more people. So somebody's going to stick with minimum, make them, that's where you're going to get your A- colt from, not your S, really good racer. In terms of number, I think 35 is great now. Like, we're seeing tons of stuff get 15, right? Like you said, you just pull up random horse that got 15. And by random, I mean, not, not like I'm the best racer or whatever. It's not a 9-star. It's not a stat. It's just a solid horse. Just solid horses are getting 15 covers. So I think 35, the best ones deserve it. I think people have to be strategic. I think, if you use like Little Dynamite, for example, he sold out. I mean, I know he took probably 18 or 20 or something himself. So he really only sold like 15 external, but he sold them all in 20 minutes, right? Because he priced at 500. So it's like, well, if he would have just priced 1,000, would he have gotten half of them and made the same amount of money? Like, I think having 35 still makes you have to, like, do some game theory when you price. So I think 35 is still fine, but I do think they probably should come up with something so that you can't just run train back-to-back 4K and sell it out. I've done it once my horse got a lot of popularity. I then, went and did it. So, yeah, it's not against TOS. People are going to take advantage. Maybe you put a delay, like one one breed per 5 minutes per stable or whatever it may be. I don't know. That's really clunky. But you probably, if that were the case, if that was put in, Finge, you probably just put it in the private barn and you pay $100 instead of 50. That adds up. But again, when we're talking about the margins, we're talking on these horses, right? As long as you get a filly, it's worth $1,000 and you paid 100. Like, well, it's still fucking great. And that's for the worst filly, and you're not making the worst fillies. So maybe it's on the other end. That's the other thing I think we don't talk about enough. If they do put some other fee on the other end based on the outcome, like maybe you do have to pay something to basically name it or put it into service or whatever that may be. I know Ian's throwing those out. So maybe that's the easier. It's like, okay, well, you got lucky. You paid $100 and you popped out an S plus, but now it's, in order to own that S plus, you pay a higher fee than the person who puts an A minus into the system or something. But then that gets wonky with scheduling and what can make what, because you got handicaps that A minus is crushing that are 2,500 Derby entry fees, and that's the same as a G3. So it all ties together. That's the beauty of this game. But we're still just so early that we're working it out. But yeah, the people that are here are definitely benefiting from, some of the workarounds that are, like you said, completely allowed by design.
Yeah. Just a few comments in chat there. Lacey's saying she's okay with most of it and kind of suggests that there's downsides to a true free market, meaning if you list it below $50, like then does Serenity Now go down to $30? Now, I don't think Serenity Now does. I think Mr. V, destroyer of the game, has acknowledged he could actually,
he could sell that horse out for $100 a piece now, like he does, and he's just like, well, I don't want to raise it on people now. So yeah, no, I agree though. I've been vocal in the last few days around offers on the marketplace. I think there's just tons of stuff that people will drive stuff down, especially when, yeah. I mean, that's a great point too, right? Like, same thing that happened with the whole, should we move it to 4 years old from 3? Well, it's like, well, all your new users just came in and bought a 2-year-old and now fucked because, they were, making a financial decision for 2 weeks from now, not 6. So, yeah, there's probably ways to do it without it being a complete nerf or moving it too much. Like I said, if you do it on the back end, and give 3 months notice or whatever it may be, and then they could just take it and keep dumping it right back in, right? They turn it into Crown and put it into Stimmies or whatever they want to do with it. Nobody's really losing that much if you're, like you said, in the current market, right? Every horse is basically worth more than what it's breeding for right now.
Yeah. Even if you're paying $2K to breed, because a lot of people paying $2K to breed are doing it with assets. Yeah,
if you hit hot sauce, even if the colt's worth 200,000 Derby, because you're getting a good colt.
Yeah, I mean, obviously don't do it with a B- filly or anything like that, I don't think. But
if you're doing the appropriate level to those type of horses, the assets that you're getting back is pretty risk, because especially now that we have claimers, right? You got a 250K claimer, you paid 180 to breed. Worst case, you make $1,000, but you might have a superstar ratio that's way better than claimers, right? We have $300 entry fee races right now where people are winning over $1,000 racing. So one race can pay back your breed if you win it.
So 2 other things on the racing mechanics, racing bylaws, as we'll call them. How do you feel about V1s and V2 races? I'll let you take that one. Remind me, I want to come back to race rake would be the second option.
So I think they've made a change to the V1s recently, which I think has been a good one. It used to populate on the same schedule and just start 5 minutes later. So if you build something very quickly, towards the very end, and then a new one opened, it was only open for a few seconds. That was poor. I think it goes 6 or 8 hours later now. So you're not gonna enter and only get 4 horses and farm all that crown. So I don't hate them as much now, but if we're going to go the route of reduced crown stimmies, they should never exist again. because you're already thin, know exactly how many races you're going to have on the schedule. That's how much crown you're dividing it by, and you don't need to set any aside for these extra races. Incentivize people to get their horses in a race early, and if you miss it, you're now waiting an extra day to get that perfect size race. You don't want to incentivize these last second entries to where, because one, you get more crown, but two, now you only have to beat 3 horses to win the race, which is still profitable. So yeah, I think D1s hopefully have a week and a half left, and they don't exist in any future season at all.
I lied. I don't want to go to Race Rake next. You brought up a good point there on race lobby sizes. Do you feel as if 12 is like the perfect rule of thumb there? Should G1s always be 16 and G2s be 14 and G3s and everything else be 12? Or should G3s be 12 and everything else be 10? Like, how do you feel about lobby size? Obviously, knowing that at this point, the reason that matters, one, is because first out of 16 pays better than first out of 12, but also that crown is divisible based on the total number of entrants based on the race. So 8 out of 16 pays a better crown yield than 8 out of 12 does.
Yeah, I'm gonna go a different angle, and not one that you probably thought I would. I think it, based off of crown. I think it would be cool to see them have, tiered down, like you said, because I want to figure out what heart is. We only really get to race in these jam-packed races with 20 horses once a season per archetype. Now, I mean, we have some of the free ones on the weekends too, but those are, I still don't understand why we're not doing 1 per week, and we're doing like 3 right turf this weekend and 0 the first 2 weekends and then 2 next weekend. Don't understand that. Maybe there's a good reason for that. So you're maybe getting like 1 or 2 chances to race in like a 20 horse field. And if we think that the heart is based on field size or race purse and all that, well, it kind of feels like a penalty if you have a horse that's got this awesome heart and they only get 1 real chance to race in it, because the qualifiers don't fill up, right? There's too many of those probably in a day, or just not enough horses yet for that number. Because I mean, I've raced in them, and you're getting 8 or 9 horses in the qualifiers. 4 of them are A's that are Farm and Crown. So I feel like if you have this horse that has like the high heart, you're not really being able to take advantage of it enough if it truly is impacted by being in 20 horse fields or fields with a big purse or whatever. The wording is kind of vague. We don't truly understand it, I don't think. So that's kind of the angle I would like. If we could get these fuller races on a more regular cadence, I think it would help those type of horses.
Yeah, and then I think the last big one, and we don't have to spend a lot of time on it tonight, but I do think it's going to boil up a little bit. Maybe not in a boil over sense, but I do think it'll boil up a little bit. In that, how do you feel about 20% rake when crown goes down? In contrast to not just 20% in a vacuum, but in contrast to that breeding rake is what, 5%?
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, breeding rake is 5.
Yeah, so breeding rate gets 5%, and we're seeing the same things we've talked about, where even if you're spending $2,000 on a breed, obviously you're going to spend 5% more than $2,000. But that horse, again, assuming you're using a reasonable asset on the filly side, has always been worth more than that cover. Not saying someone charge $10,000 for your colt just to test this theory. But if we're seeing like great outcomes across the board in breeding, and the rake is 5% there, and the race rake is 20%, do you think that there's merit to shifting? And I want to be very clear that my Okay, Lacey says breeding race 20%, marketplace is 5. Thank you, and Peep as well. Even still, I would still actually take this line of questioning, this line of logic of breeding outcomes are relatively predictable as long as you're not inbreeding. Apparently, 2S's can make a C plus or whatever that ends up being. But they're fairly predictable, and they've historically been great outcomes. And I'm acknowledging that crown, which is very important in all of this. We've already talked about how game is crown, crown is game. How it's getting its value for people that aren't just speculating is that they're staking at a track and earning a derby yield based on the race rig. I'm not saying that the people that are staking crown shouldn't make a shit ton of money by staking their crown. I wonder if race rake was a percent lower than 20%, and I'm not saying 19%, I'm just saying a number lower than 20%, and breeding rake was increased, and that whatever was increased on the breeding rake went to the crown staker. So you stake at a track and you stake at a veterinarian clinic of wherever the foal was born. Like we delivered our foals at DeStables veterinary or whatever that ends up being, because I personally worry a little bit, like the flywheel is effective as fuck on the upswing, and it can be just as effective if you lose momentum in any way, shape, or form. So if we're saying like the profits are good, profits are stable, and the people making the profits, when we talked about how Ted only has like 25 total pregnant mares, I think maybe that was even high, but some number way lower than us. Like we're making our money based on breeding more or less. Like tax us, make me pay money for breeding, and have it go to the crown holders. I'm fine with that until, in my opinion, this is my opinion, until the track majority shareholders are able to design racing cards for their track, design a racing schedule for their track, have promotionals or rake back features associated with their track, until it's really their track. In my opinion, where they get their crown yield or the derby yield, I guess, on their crown doesn't really matter. It could come from the marketplace, it could come from breeding, it could come from racing. And if crown per race, per horse race is going to go down, we know that. That's more or less inevitable. And it's good. I want horses to enter the race to try to win. But beating a 20% rake is somewhat difficult unless, like when I made the analogy of the team delivered on making assets on chain, which I didn't even know they were working on. Maybe they have like talks at the 2-yard line on a betting partner or something that would just change the narrative on a 20% rake. And I get it's rich for me to be complaining about making a crap ton of money in this game and saying like, yeah, I'm making a lot of money, but I'm worried about this. But do you think there's any merit at all to shifting where crown gets its yield from?
There's definitely merit. I think it all just depends what they do with it. Like you said, if we found out this week, I believe that the team is obviously, and the investors are in 27% of crown, and it's going to get unlocked here in the next 11 months, was it 6 month schedule, and they're probably 4 months away from starting that or something, so call it a year. They're going to be able to stake, so they obviously could cut other things and make their money that way, and they're going to put back on, if they keep putting in, I guess what I'm saying, the growth phase is going to end. And eventually the team is going to take the 20% breeding and just keep it, right? I don't know that I care as long as like it evens out, right? They could either cut race rake, but put breeding, instead of putting it into the team's pocket, they put it into the staking, and then they get it back out because they're staking. Like that's fine. Or they just keep, maybe they up the breeding and they buy crown and they re-put stimmies out, or they do free pots, or like they're doing now with it. I think that's kind of where I'm at. I don't really care how they do it. I just don't see how you can cut the growth phase, also allow the team to stake and get their cut of crown of an entry rake, and keep entry rake at 20%. Like that to me is where it's like we're flying the other way, because I don't know. I'm a spreadsheet nerd. I have it pulled up. I'm at -8% racing right now. So if race rake was 10%, I'd be 2% positive across all 9 seasons racing. And now there was obviously some, a mass amount of racing during that time where I wasn't 100% focused on trying to win every race, and I'm entering everything every 24 hours because of these stimmies. So I can probably make that number way closer to 0 if I'm more selective and I'm not entering, a donkey. But if everyone stops entering their donkeys, the marketplace gets flooded and the prices go down. It all flywheels, to your point. Like there's going to be way unless there's enough levers to pull. But the cool thing is they have the levers, and I don't think that they're naive to the fact that they can't just, and they already have, right? They're already saying we need to extend crown stimmies because we can't just go cold turkey on this. I think they probably are, hopefully thinking about the same thing with the growth phase, right? If the whole game is gonna, not the whole game, that's not the right wording, but basically if it's all gonna piggyback off of crown price and stakers wanting to actually hold their crown, put it on it, and we hit 95 cents today and sat there forever because nobody was taking it off the tracks, right? Nobody was going and being like, well, see, here's my 30K dump. Like that's what we used to see back when we were hitting 32, 33, 34, and it would go right back down. So if that's the goal and that's going to be the driver, you can't just cut out marketplace and breeding fees going 100% to the team's pocket, plus them being able to stay and take their cut up to 20% rate on top. They have to know that they're not dumb. Like in terms of user behaviors, they know what they've built, they know what they've given, and you can't cut people off that quick, or it's gonna go way the wrong way. So kind of tease around to give you a true answer. It's more so I don't care what they do as long as they don't just cut it all and stop. Like I'm fine with it, but if that then needs to be the team's primary way to make money, I think, is because they own 27% of crown, they can stake it and keep 20% race rate, but you need to be giving everything else right back, because if not, you're diluting everywhere, and then nobody's going to be making any positive EV decisions at that point. It'd just be really hard. And not that everyone should make money. Like we definitely have to get away from, in your race without even looking, make money. Like that is great in the early phase, and everyone that's people are profiting off that, but the game can't survive that way either. Like it's just it can't. So there's both sides of it. You want to make it a true strategy game, but you can't also make it so minus EV that I'll just pack my bags up and leave type deal.
Well, I thought that's what Zook was doing. I thought Zook was losing so all of us could win. He was showing that, not everybody is winning, so the game is actually in a good place right now. Yeah.
He, I guess, technically won because he didn't spend that. He spent less to make that horse than he got it claimed for, but...
For sure. Do you know what? Otherwise, I'm going to ask for Riptide to maybe clarify if you can. Do you know what he's talking about I'm assuming Ascension means the stable, Ascension Stables. Do you know what he's talking about here on tax, stud earning, buy side and sell, cover side fees? I don't know what
I read the suggestion. It's in the suggestion in the Discord. Let me pull it up. I read it once. Didn't put much thought into it. Let me see if I can find it.
You're just making too much money. 50K a horse. Like, why would I care about gate mechanics? Like, this print, sell.
November close this week, dude. It's been a long week at work. You don't do close cycles, do you?
Quarterly and annual.
Let's see, Ascension. See if I can
it was a
find
very out there suggestion. Interesting. I don't mind unique thoughts, as long as they're rooted in some sort of logic.
Is this the one, Riptide, is this the one where he basically says it's pari-mutuel between who wins, so that whoever.
Well, he's
like, if the
saying
best-
tax stud earning as well as breeding fees.
So he had another one that I think that's the only one that I've said. I don't think I've seen the one he's referencing, but he had one where it was like, if you're entering a race and you're like, you know, just a huge favorite in the race, then the pot redistributes like more to second place than it does first. Or something.
No,
and that
no,
I don't
no.
like. Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
No, we'll shut that one down. Can we downvote that one? As far as taxing stud earnings as well as breeding fees, I mean, if you kind of mean it in the term of tax, and then this will give Vijay a hard on if we talk about like tax brackets and stuff like that. Like if you do tax the studs that are getting the predominant amount of the volume, the predominant amount of the Derby, whatever your metrics are there, like you're taxing the people that are actually bringing in the money for the benefit of the entire community. Like I could see an argument towards that, and obviously like we've joked around it. We'll have that not for sale colt that will be a sought after piece to breed with. We have another one at LDF the same season. We're bringing in some LDS stuff to LDF. Like we don't have, other than Gen Zero, we don't have colts that people want, but that's because we didn't start with the fillies that generate colts that people want. We didn't buy a bunch of them, so like we'll get there. Like I realize if I'm arguing to tax the people that are making stud fees now, and we're not that now, I do definitely think we'll eventually be there. So I do think I'm not biased or unbiased against it, I guess. But
So you're basically saying if you're like if you price it min, if you price it 4, then they're gonna only get 20% less than what they're getting 80% of the listed fee, and the person that bred is gonna pay 120%. Is that what they're saying? Both sides are gonna
Seems
pay
like
so
it.
they generate. Do you think that would help prices go up or down?
I think you could make an argument that raises stud fees. I mean, to what end? Because if the stud fee goes up, then is it less sought after? Does it get less volume? And if it gets less volume, then the stud owner is making less. Bobby Boucher's back with leave it alone type
This
of
guy's
comment.
probably also an accountant, dude. He does not like changing rules. It's just like, the change not good. He's probably an auditor. Don't change anything.
I mean, it's, to be honest, like it's a moot discussion point in large senses. Like I don't think the team's going to do anything to 20% racing rate. Ian is very clear in that if anything, he thinks racing rate's going to go up eventually, and that will have been because they've been able to offset the entry fees, whether that's partnerships or betting or whatever that may be. I do think if you look at the number of stables, or even just like a composition of stable earnings of how much absolute horsepower is making from breeding versus how much they're making from racing, I do think there's a pretty big disparity on the breeding side to the benefit, even if you kept marketplace out of it. And if we want people to race, because if people race, then crown stakers at tracks do well. If we gave them a bite of the apple at breeding, could we reduce racing rate and still end up in the same spot with the people that are shouldering that burden being the people that are making money breeding, i.e. us? So I don't know. Like I said, I don't think the team's going to do anything with it. But what we did accomplish, Vijay, is it's too late for me to make any fucking lineups for this dog shit football game. So mission accomplished. The title of the stream was DeStables Hostile Takeover. I don't think I can do that with 1% ownership. I don't think I can demand a board seat or anything like that. If you missed the early portion of the stream, I did talk through the decision to buy a bunch of the DeStable token, again, in large part by just looking at their crown holdings in crown count, not crown dollars, USDC, but crown count, what they're yet to obtain in crown count, and the market cap of the stable per tensor. And there's logistical concerns about how do you return funds to holders, all those types of things. Like, I get it. I thought it traded at a good enough discount for me personally, not financial advice. Do your own research. We do get into some other topics here as well. Like I said, if you're just joining late, this and every single one, even the ones that were choppy, shout out to the new computer. We didn't lag and we're watching race replays. Like, I literally couldn't do this in the last computer, but all of the replays are available on the Absolute Horsepower YouTube channel. I'll tweet that out from the Absolute Horsepower Twitter after this. We'll give Riptide one more shout here before signing off. Sends at all. Just need enough of us to be acquiring 1% each. Yeah. I'm not trying to pump my bags of what I bought. Like, I think the screenshot of the Twitter thread shows that the highest I paid, and I covered it early in the stream, the highest I paid was 4.28 SOL per, and now it was like 5.3 or something like that. Like, don't buy now because I bought based on how I bought, when I bought. Buy if it's the right decision point for you. I think a value add in getting into a stable like that is there are smart people like F-Dog. Apparently, Monkey Tennis doesn't operate it anymore. My bad, a little bit, even though he was maybe a core architect there. But there's a value add to having someone that is amongst the best in the game operating that stable. And if we say that there's concerns about how do they return money to holders and those types of things, well, last I checked, and I'm the biggest Clinosaurus fan in the world, last I checked, Clinosaurus doesn't have a roadmap to return money to me either. So as long as the token is tradable, you believe in Crown, you believe in DeStables, you believe in the horses, like, that was evidence enough for me. I don't know if it is for you.
Yeah, I got one question before we leave.
Okay.
Who you got winning the Bachelor in Paradise final tonight? Like, who's gonna lead?
Couldn't fucking tell you the ethnicity or the gender of the participants. Oh, you said the Bachelor,
It's
so then it's
multiple.
gotta be.
No, it's Paradise, dude. There's tons of couples.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I last watched The Bachelor in 2014 because we were in Australia for 3 months' time, and this will be a knock at the Australians. Shout out to them in the chat. At least at the time, again, this is 2014, there wasn't shit on television in Australia. So The Bachelor was more or less the only show in town. And we made it a betting game. You had to pick like your contestants on the first show. Like, I know there were like Bachelor pools, like these exist.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is a very common thing. But if you want me to watch The Bachelor, then maybe VJJ sets up a Bachelor pool for the exec club of PFL or the Jockey Club, and we get some money on it. Then maybe I'll watch it. One more comment here from Riptide. Again, Riptide, who's tailing who? Because you keep reading with a Colt that I bought from VJJ, and I was trying to keep that my own little secret there, but. Aaron and F-Dog do seem to be nailing the stable management. Maybe let it slip a little on the community management, but think they're gearing up to get them back on side. It seems good. Like, I trust F-Dog. Like, if F-Dog wants to run Absolute Horsepower too for zero management fee, like, we have an opening. We could certainly take the help there. So, all right. Well, kickoff's in 4 or 9 minutes. I don't have a lineup. I feel fucking great. I appreciate all of you tuning in. We had some big fucking numbers today, despite RVA not having a microphone, despite cashing a $50,000 horse. So we'll get that rectified.
What do we got?
I will do. I rectified my own computing issues and internet issues. So up only from here, or so we hope. Thanks, everyone.